Hello, everyone. I think you all heard about the Renaissance. So let me clarify first what's the Renaissance. The Renaissance, or we can say rebirth, reawakening, or resurrection, it's an international term. The Renaissance was a period of European cultural, artistic, economic, and political rebirth following the Middle Ages. It affected European countries positively. Also, it profoundly affected the countries' economic life, social life, cultural life, also countries' literature, art, language, culture, architecture, and etc. It changed the world just about every way one could think of. And behind it was a new intellectual discipline. The perspective was developed. Light and shadow were studied. The human anatomy was poured over. All in pursuit of a new realism and a desire to capture the beauty of the world as it really was. Today, me and my group mates are going to talk about more detail about Azerbaijan Renaissance. In the middle of 9th century, there has been development of Azerbaijan history, the collapse of Arab Caliphate, the revival of traditions of ancient states, also the formation of Şirvanşahlar, Sacı, Salari, Rebbadi, Şaddadi, and Eldamizler states has gained the political power that contribute to awakening to the material and spiritual culture. The ethnic political unity was strong to accelerate the formation of common culture and common language. Also, as a result of the collapse of caliphate, gave an important impetus to the development of science in Azerbaijan. And moreover to this, the Silk Road connection of old caravan roads to Europe and Asia has led to the development in this region. As a result of this process, the Renaissance happened in the social cultural environment and economic development in the East. And this cultural, economic, and political event is called the Eastern Renaissance or Muslim Renaissance, that led to the emergence of its great literature, art, architecture, language, culture. And now I give my floor to the Nazreen. She will talk about more detail about the development of literature in Renaissance period.
Today I would like to talk about the Renaissance literature. Since the middle of the 8th century, the achievements of Arabic poetry and its main forms, ghazal, poems with measure of arus, treatises, and works on poetry have become one of cultural realities in the same way as work on astronomy, philosophy, etc. in Azerbaijan. The Azerbaijani nation was no exception and raised many prominent scholars, theologians, and poets, among whom represent the Muslim culture with its Arabic orientation. Azerbaijan's artistic blossoming encouraged Turkish Muslims throughout the Russian Empire and beyond, spurring the development of theater and opera houses that were among the first in the Muslim world. Tsarist authorities first encouraged, then tolerated, and then employed intensified independence declaration. Several artists were influential during the Renaissance. First, I would like to talk about Mirza Fatali Akhundzadeh, who also known as Akhundov. Mirza Fatali Akhundzadeh was a playwright and philosopher who inspired Azerbaijani literature by writing in Azerbaijani Turkish. His plays, which were among the first major theater production in Azerbaijan, and continued to be widely regarded as form models. To sum up, Mirza Fatali Akhundov was famous as a writer and a philosopher, having a great role in the development of new period literature philosophic ideas of Azerbaijan and the Muslim people of the Near East. He is also considered to be the one of the representative of the movement for the ideology of enlightenment in the world. Second, I would like to talk about Üzeyir Hacıbeyli. Üzeyir Hacıbeyli, a musician and poet, employed traditional instrument and themes in his musical creation, which included the first operas in the Islamic world. Then Hüseyin Cavid. Hüseyin Cavid, a Turkish poet and playwright, wrote on historical themes, particularly the Timur area. Last one is Nizami Gencevi. Nizami Gencevi, one of the greatest representative of the Eastern Renaissance, who was born in the 12th century in sunny Azerbaijan and represent the quantities of the world literature and philosophy in his immortal work on Khamsa via the aesthetic power of his art. Nizami Gencevi distinguished himself as a highest peak in Renaissance literature with his ingenuity. Nizami's immortal Khamsa, Sirlər Xəzinəsi, Xosrov and Şirin, Leyli and Məcnun, Yeddi Gözəl, and İskəndərnamə has garnered him international.
In the second half of the 19th century and in the early 20th century, Azerbaijan underwent a cultural renaissance that drew on the golden age of the 11th to the 13th centuries and other influences. The patronage of the arts and education that characterized this movement was fueled in part by increasing oil wealth. Azerbaijan's new industrial and commercial elites contributed funds for the establishment of many libraries, schools, hospitals, and charitable organizations as well. In the 1770s, philanthropist Hacı Zeynalabdin Tagiev built and endowed Baku's first theater. Artistic flowering in Azerbaijan inspired Turkic Muslims throughout the Russian Empire and abroad, stimulating, among other phenomena, the establishment of theaters and opera houses that were among the first in the Muslim world. Tsarist authorities first encouraged, then tolerated, and finally used intensified Russification against this assertion, and several artists played important role in the Renaissances. One of them was Mirza Fatali Akhundzadeh, which called also Akhundov, a playwright and philosopher, influenced the Azerbaijani literary language by writing in vernacular Azerbaijani Turkish. His place among the first significant theater production in Azerbaijan, continuing to have wide popular appeal as models of from in the late 20th century. The composer and poet Üzeyir Hacıbeyli used traditional instruments and themes in his musical composition, among which were the first opera in the Islamic world. The poet and playwright Hüseyin Cavid wrote in Turkish about historical themes, most notable the era of Timur. Under Soviet rule, Azerbaijani cultural expression was circumscribed and forcibly supplanted by Russian cultural values. Particularly during Stalin's purges of 1930s, many Azerbaijani writers and intellectuals were murdered, and ruthless attempts were made to erase evidence of their lives and work from historical records. Cultural monuments, libraries, mosques, and archives were destroyed. The two forcible changes of alphabet in the 1920s and 1930s further isolated Azerbaijanis from their literary heritage. Never completely fileless during the Soviet period, however, Azerbaijani culture underwent a modest rebirth during Khrushchev's reelection of controls in the 1950s, when many who had been victims of Stalin's purges were post-obit rehabilitated and their works republished. In the 1970s and 1980s, another rebirth occurred when Moscow against loosened cultural restriction. Under Aliyev's first regime, publication of some mildly nationalist pieces was allowed. Including serialization of Aziza Jafarzade's historical novel Baku, 1501. In the late 1980s, Gorbachev's policy of glasnost energized a major movement among Azerbaijani writers and historians to eliminate blank pages in the nation's past, such as Azerbaijan resistance to Tsarist and Soviet power and Stalin's crimes against the people of the Soviet Union. Reprints to Azerbaijan historical and literally classical become more plentiful, as did political tracts on topics such as Azerbaijani claims to Nagorno-Karabakh.
Hello everyone, I am Fidan Alahverdieva, and today I am going to talk about language and architecture development in Azerbaijan during the Renaissance period. I want to say that transformation of Turkish people, Turkish language ended during the Renaissance period, and it was one of the most significant things that happened in the Renaissance. It was the most important achievement for the Turkish people, for Azeris, because in the 12th century, Turkish tribes, Oghuz Turks, came to Azerbaijan, migrated to here, and now in this time of period, transformation of Turkish is ended. I mean, Turkification process is ended. But also I can say that during the 13th period, 13th century, Mughals came back to Azerbaijan, and they were helped to improvement of the people that live here. I want to talk about the famous person, Behmet ibn Merzban, who was a student of Ibn Sina, and he has been translating his works to Western and Eastern language. It shows that language is very important during this time of period, and we have very famous people that were working with languages. And now I want to talk about the Renaissance architectures. I want to say that maybe most of us know that Ajami Abu Bakr, who lived in 12th century, he was one of the representative person of Renaissance architecture, because we can say that now I have put the most important monuments like Yusuf ibn Ksir tomb, Mümne Hatun, Gosha Minare, Darülmülk. These are mostly for Erdenizler. And I want to say that Yusuf ibn Ksir and Mümne Hatun tomb, as we see here, they are located in Nakhchivan. Why? Because I think Nakhchivan was also capital of Erdenizler. Also, I want to say that as in the previous slide, it was named Darülmülk. Darülmülk was the palace of Erdenizden, and I want to talk about Grand bridges also were built in Azerbaijan during Renaissance period, such as Khudaferin Bridge. Khudaferin Bridge was one of the famous bridge in Azerbaijan. In the 12th century, 15 spans of Khudaferin Bridge were built. And in 13th century, 11 spans of Khudaferin Bridge also built. So not just Khudaferin Bridge, also we can talk about Red Bridge. Most of us know that it is located in Kazakh. Also, I think it was using for translation with Georgia. If I don't mistake, it was like that. It all belonged to Renaissance period. Now I want to talk about in Şirvanşah. In Şirvanşah, as Şirvanşah optional architecture because it was, we know that Şirvanşah was still a country with high deep history. At this time of period, there were many famous Şirvanşah's architectures of monuments, such as we can say Maiden Tower or Merdakan Towers. This is all built in Renaissance period. We all know that Maiden Tower was built by Maksut Davutoğlu in the 12th century. Most of them say that the base of Maiden Tower was built in 6th or 7th century, but it finished in Renaissance period because of the high. We know that the measuring of Maiden Tower is 29.5 meters, and diameter is 16.5 meters. It is very big, and Maiden Tower probably served as a fire temple in its first incarnation before becoming a fortification in the 12th century. Yeah, it was for fortification. And also, I want to say that Merdakan Tower, also built by, it is very. It is not 100%, but it is also think that people think that Merdakan Tower, also built by Maksut Davutoğlu. Now I want to tell that I finished my part, and now I want to give my floor to my groupmate, and she will conclude our conclusion.
Moreover, we are close to an end of our speech. I would like to continue the rest of the part of the speech. In conclusion, as my groupmates mentioned, during the period of rising of Renaissance at 21st century, period of 21st centuries, moreover, popular poets and during the rising of Renaissance, architects were known well. Azerbaijan, one of several world's oldest countries, has every right to be a part of its culture, architectural, and historical structures, as its poetry, art, and musical history. Azerbaijani people, their artistic views and creativity ability were affected mostly by the region itself's beautiful landscape, its beautiful ecology, and natural wealth of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan's traditional arts are a diverse, broad, and different as country's natural resources. Folk art is connected to our daily lives, and life has a special area in the art of the history too. Also, through the old period, Azerbaijan was also known and has been wealthy in design structures, which is a part of traditional arts, along with the work of its famous artworks. In Baku, the Maiden Tower and Shirvanshah's Palace, the the graveyards of Memne Khatun and Yusuf ibn Kuseyr was designed by the architect named Ecemi Nakhchivan. Natavan's palace, images on the exterior of Shaki Khan Palace, and other forms are uncommon, which is very beautiful structural masterpieces. Azerbaijan has been experienced a renaissance in the late 19th century and the beginning of the period of 20s to 30s areas and some inspirations. Also, rising the oil wealth encouraged the support of the arts and social sciences that characterized this period. Moreover, many bookstores, institutions, theaters, and charity groups, they have been developed from donations supplied by Azerbaijan's rising social and agricultural leaders. Haj Zainalabdin Tagiev, a humanitarian person, he developed and built Baku's earliest cinema in 1880s. Azerbaijan has always been a beautiful country. I would like to finalize my speech. Thank you so much for taking your time and watching and listening to our speech.